Hello guys, it's me again. And today we're going to be talking about a literary topic. Yay, my favorite. So I was going to make a video about my character Sunstrike actually, but then I ended up thinking that it would be more interesting, or I just really wanted to do something bigger and talk about not really her personality, but actually a type of character, an archetype. And I honestly think she would prefer it this way, actually. I mean, Sunstrike, or cat. But my question, if you can call it a question, or the topic today, is Christ figures. So, have you ever heard of a Christ figure? What is that? I didn't know, but it actually is a real thing, because I looked it up today. It's a technical thing. It's not just things that, people like nerds like me talk about or like to think of. So a Christ figure, or a Christ image, is a literary technique that the author uses to draw allusions between their characters and Jesus, or more loosely, Christ figure is a spiritual or prophetic character who parallels Jesus or other prophetic figures or spiritual ones. And in general, like here it says that they're supposed to portray more than one trait of Jesus, which is probably true. I think in fiction I don't normally see characters who perform miracles or healing exactly, but yes, definitely displaying kindness and forgiveness, fighting for justice, being guided by the father character or the mentor in the character's own death and resurrection. I mean, we see this in classic fiction all the time. Yes, and Christ figures are often martyrs, sacrificing themselves for larger causes. So you could even have a character do that, and it's kind of a Christ figure. So it doesn't have to be very religious at all. But, yeah, I digress here. Some popular characters that when I was doing a little bit of research on this topic, some popular characters in fiction that come up a lot are Mufasa. I never thought of that, but yeah, even Simba, I think, is a bit of a Christ-type character. Maybe Mufasa is a bit more like God the Father. I'm not exactly sure. I'd have to read up on exactly how people see them that way. I mean, I would have my own opinion. But it's been a while since I've seen that movie. Powerful movie, though. Then this is a duh. Aslan. Aslan is very much... I think, actually, C.S. Lewis didn't think of Narnia as an allegory or a metaphor exactly. More like, or at least not Aslan, because Aslan is actually Jesus. Like, he's not like representing Jesus, he actually is Jesus, but as a lion, like Aslan says in the books, in your world I have another name. Like, the only reason I had you get to know me here was so that you could know me better there. So Aslan is not like a picture of Jesus or a symbol of Jesus. Aslan literally is Jesus, but in a different world. So that's really interesting. I don't know. I love that fluffy guy. He's the best. And Neo from the Matrix comes up a lot. Can't speak today. And yeah, I can see that. I mean, I don't think he's very gracious or kind, but like his actions definitely, and like his story arc is very, very much alludes to the classic sort of Christ figure or hero's journey type thing. And since the Lego movie is basically the same as the Matrix, only like more funny and for kids, then yeah, I guess Emmett would be a Christ figure too. Again, there's the whole death and resurrection and lots of other things. This is a personal favorite of mine. This one comes up sometimes. Is Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind. And I always wondered why she was such a powerful character, or why she stuck out to me so much. And I think there is a very unique spirit about her. A strength that is unusual. It's not like a superficial strength at all. But yeah, a lot of other characters that pop up is like Gandalf and Frodo, actually, and Superman, characters like that. And you can probably guess how these characters allude to Jesus, or just follow that classic universal story of like love and self-sacrifice, kindness, and like just a miraculous experience of some kind. Now I'm going to talk about some of my personal favorite Christ figures in fiction that I can think of off the top of my head. Like if I thought really hard, I could probably come up with way more. But here we have Elita from Alita Battle Angel, both the movie and the manga. I have read a lot of the manga, not all of it. Now, if you have seen the movie and you haven't read the manga, I would just warn you that it's a lot more gruesome and gritty and a bit more adult than the movie. So, but yeah, I still think Elita is a fantastic character from both of them, although there are definitely differences from both versions, but yeah, definitely some differences, but still, I think the character is a very strong one. Yeah, Elita, I actually have seen some videos where people talk about her being a Christ-like figure, but also there are other aspects of the story itself that have some pretty heavy biblical symbolism and allude to mythology, possibly as well. Some really interesting videos on that. I can't remember who made those or which videos they were exactly, but if I can find any, I'll try to put them in the description. Elita probably deserves her own video because, yeah, she's a character who I think has had a pretty strong impact on me. Who else have I got here? Tangiero from Demon Slayer. Again, warning for this show being extremely gruesome, but I shouldn't say extremely because I'm sure they're much worse, but I mean, it's a cartoon, and if you think cartoons are just for kids, then like, oh, don't watch this one if you're sensitive to violence, that's for sure. But yeah, oh my goodness, when it comes to the aspect of Jesus that is kindness and mercy. Sorry, my sister's in the background kind of yelling there, but that's why I paused. Sorry, where was I? But when it comes to the aspect of Jesus or Christ or, this kind of heroic archetype that embodies compassion and kindness, wow, I have not seen a character embody that better than this one. Again, that really deserves its own video. Like, if I get talking about him too much or about any one of these characters too much, it will take, way too long, but beautiful character, beautiful writing in that show. And this one I think is unusual in that I don't think this is the norm for Christ figures in fiction, at least that I see. And yeah, as you can see, this is Master Splinter. I'm talking about him, not Shredder, from the 1990s Ninja Turtles movie. And he, as you can see in this image, he is hung up on this torture rack, and the Foot Clan and Shredder are interrogating him and beating him and insulting him, and he doesn't say a word in his defense or against them, at least not that I can recall. I'd have to watch the film again. And it's just an eerie, almost peacefulness about the scene, and you really admire Master Splinter in that moment, but even more so in a scene that follows where Splinter is still hanging there, and one of the foot soldiers comes to him, who is just who's really just a troubled boy who kind of got misled into being a part of the Foot. And Master Splinter, even in his state, where he's probably hungry and bleeding, beaten, and feeling awful and missing his sons, he just sees this boy and has compassion on him and offers to be a listening ear to him. Even he doesn't think about himself, he just thinks about someone else. Even in that state, which is a lot like the crucifixion of Jesus, where he didn't speak up for himself. He didn't insult anyone who was hurling insults at him. He just said Father, forgive them, and he was just so gracious, and that little that little boy in the movie, Danny, I think his name was, could be a little bit, like, I'm not saying this is intentional or anything, but it could allude a bit to, like, the thief on the cross scenario. And so, yeah, talking about Christ figures, I think the first time I heard the word or the phrase Christ figure was when my family was watching Big Hero 6, and in this scene where Baymax sacrifices himself for Hero, my dad told the kids who were watching the movie that Baymax is a Christ-like figure, and that really struck me. It's not that I didn't know that, but it almost became more clear when he said it, or it made me remember it more. And on that note, this image looks a lot like, to me, it looks a lot like that painting that Michelangelo did of God, like, reaching out to give life to Adam. And I'm not sure if that was intentional or not, but I don't know, it's just beautiful, beautiful scene. One thing that I do find really interesting and strange almost, but, like, really fascinating is, yeah, speaking of Big Hero 6, robot movies, especially robot movies for children, like, so many of them, or at least the ones that I know of that I've seen, in those films, the robot is a super strong Christ-like figure. So we've got the Iron Giant, like, yes, he's even on some of the lists that I, looked up when I was researching Christ figures. Yes, he sacrifices himself to save all the citizens in that town. There's probably other elements in there as well, but I'd have to watch the film again. And of course, Baymax. I think that's a pretty obvious one. Next Gen is almost even stronger in the Christ representation than those two. In that Project 77, I believe that's what the robot is called, has this really strong unconditional love for this little girl who does not deserve it. And, like, even when she keeps hurting him and abusing him and telling him to leave, he won't leave. And he just wants to stay with her because he can see that she's hurting and he wants to fix her. And it's not like a pushy, forceful thing either. He's one of the most gentle characters I've encountered in fiction that I can think of right now off the top of my head. But again, Tangiero is another good example of that. But perhaps the strongest out of these four movies here, as far as the Christ representation, is Astro Boy, actually. It's almost like a kid's sci-fi version of the Gospel of Jesus Christ. Like, you've got, well, okay, maybe the beginning is different, but Toby, or not Toby, I guess, because he's Astro now. The robot gets shunned by his family. He has to go out into the world and mingle with normal people, and they think of him as a human, but he's not a human, right? Like, just like Jesus wasn't fully human. Or, well, like, he is fully human and fully God at the same time, right? Or that's what Christians will tell you, most of them, I would think. And, but the reason why I think it's even stronger is that he gets betrayed, in a sense, or, like taken into custody. Yes, he does get betrayed. He gets betrayed by his father. Oof. Or, like, sort of father, but he doesn't hold this against him, and he's just a very gracious character. Well, he's more of a role model. He's not, like, super, like, hashtag relatable or anything. But then at the end, he makes a statement that he was created to die for the citizens of Metro City. That was why he was created. And that's obviously not why the Father created him, but Astro believes that is why he was created, which is very much like, Christ being born to die. And then, of course, Astro does die, but is resurrected at the end, just like Jesus. So it's like, wow, yeah, that's a very strong Christ representation there. Or I've always thought so anyways. And On another note, I don't think Christ figures have to be like super direct like that, although I think that is cool and beautiful and fun even. They can be really simple, or they can even have just small elements of the Christ figure archetype and yet still be very flawed and human. I put Tigress here as an example because I don't think a lot of people would think of her when it comes to Christ-like figures. I can't shake the scene from Kung Fu Panda 2 where she sacrifices herself for Po. And yeah, like other than that, there might not be a lot of things that make her Christ-like, like at least not in the traditional sense, but that was just such a powerful moment to me. So I think, yeah, there can even be just like elements of your character that can allude to that lovely traditional storytelling tool or literary term or whatever. Blah, I can't come up with the right words right now. But yeah, I think it's not even always a character. It can be a theme. As a kid, even before I really understood Jesus or the gospel or anything like that, I think I was very drawn to stories with themes of sacrificial love. Like, there were a lot of themes as a kid that just went over my head and I didn't understand until I was older. I would still enjoy the movies with these complex themes, but I wouldn't understand them exactly, or I would misunderstand them. But one of the earliest memories I have, I think I was about 6 years old, was watching the film Ice Age for the first time, the original one. And I remember it so clearly because it was like the first film I'd ever seen where I understood what the film was about. Like, it was so clear to me, and it honestly kind of shocked me, and I remember being really quiet after I saw the movie because I was so deep in thought about it. But yeah, I think a strong theme in Ice Age is sacrificial love, which is, in this image, this was the scene where the mother sacrifices herself for her baby, and the character Diego is changed when he sees how Manny is willing to sacrifice himself for his friends. And while I don't think Diego is a Christ figure necessarily, except for in some of his actions at the end, if anything, he's a lot more like the sort of anti-hero character. But just that scene at the end where Diego steps in front of Manfred and faces down his former allies, it was just really shook me as a kid, but not where I was like scared. I just couldn't believe that people could love each other that way, like they would be willing to do that for each other. It never crossed my mind, I guess, as a kid. And I was just really sobered and inspired, or just in awe of this film and the characters' relationship with each other. But where was I going with this? So basically, there's other movies like this as well that I watched growing up, like the Tigger movie, although I don't think I have any images of that here. That may not have like a specific Christ-like figure, but the theme and the climax of the film very much alludes to that sacrificial love, or even like the Bible verse that goes, "Greater love has no one than this, that one lay down one's life for his friends," or her friends, or whatever. Yeah, there's just something so powerful about that, at least to me, but I'm sure it is powerful to a lot of other people as well. Now, there's a reason why Sunstrike was at the front of this video, or at the beginning, and that's because I think that she is a really strong Christ figure in my own stories. And that's not to say that she's the only one, or that other characters are not, or that that's all she is, because no, I think she is a very three-dimensional character, or I'd like to think that. But she is definitely an intentional Christ figure, although I'd say it was almost more like me discovering this as I created her. Like, it wasn't number one on my mind as I was... Like, it was maybe a little bit when I was creating the character, but it was more like me just discovering that along the way. So I think... anyways, continuing with what I was saying, I think Kat's design, or Sunstrike's design, I'm just going to call her Kat for simplicity's sake, is very much intentional, or at least it is now. Like, she's full of light. Like, that's why she appears the color she does. She is constantly emitting a glow, and while Jesus is the light of the world, I would say Kat is as well. Like, she alludes to him in that sense. The light of the world which the darkness could not comprehend. Now, that isn't to say that Evan represents darkness or other characters represents darkness, but rather some of the characters are living in darkness because they're like trapped in fear, or they don't know any better, and Kat is essentially living like the opposite life, like a life that they can't really understand. And yeah, I think this sort of strong contrast comes up when you pit her against almost any of the characters right now. Although, and again, I'm not saying she's better than them necessarily, because she's still flawed, but there's something special about her currently, and I think the other characters will grow, and Kat will grow too. But the other characters will become, a bit influenced by the way she sees the world. So hopefully become less jaded or depressed or whatever they're going through currently. She's also, I think in her actions, she's also a strong Christ figure, although I don't want to get into that too much to avoid spoilers. Because, again, and I think I gave you a lot of examples beforehand. Don't worry too much about her dying, okay? But I'm not saying anything. And yeah, I'll try not to say any specifics, but I mean, even so far in the story, while Kat is really flawed, she is super compassionate and just full of life. She just really wants to help people. She's like a peacemaker, a peacekeeper. She's a safe place for her brother. And what else? I think who she is, as human as she is and as flawed as she can be, I think who she is at the end of the day can be summed up in these two verses that say, I have been crucified with Christ, and it is no longer I who live, but Christ lives in me. And the life which I now live in the flesh, I live by faith in the Son of God, who loved me and gave himself up for me. Now, and there's another verse here that says, But by the grace of God I am what I am, and his grace toward me did not prove vain, but I labored even more than all of them, yet not I, but the grace of God with me. So what is that, that's, a lot of fancy words, but what does that actually mean? Well, I think, no matter how good Kat may seem to people on the outside, she would be quick to tell them that this isn't, this is all by the grace of God, this is who I am. I am not who I used to be, but that has nothing to do with her efforts. It's just something she flows from naturally, from a relationship with God and from believing that she is a new person because of that relationship. It's not, it stems from belief, and that belief flows into her actions, and it's not a result of her, willpower. Even though I think she is a really determined character. So there's this grace and this peace about this character that is really, honestly, it's a really good outlet for me. When I want to just take a breather, and write some of her scenes, it helps me calm down, I think, too. But anyways, do I have any more images here? No, I don't. Well, sorry about that little hiccup beforehand. But what do you think about archetypes, or this particular archetype? Do you enjoy archetypes from the Bible or mythology as much as I do? Do you have any favorites of this type of character, or do you enjoy this type of theme? Yeah, feel free to let me know. Sorry for my awkwardness, and I'll see if I can get these two videos edited together since my screen recorder stopped in between. But thanks so much for listening. You guys are all awesome. I hope you have a great week, and yeah, I'll talk to you soon. Bye.